Well, welcome everyone to October Ask Us Anything. Glad y'all could join us. Looks like we got quite a few people, so welcome. Thanks for joining us today and taking time out.
Yeah, for first timers, I know we put a lot of notes out there. First timers, this is JB and JC. We do this once a month. Try to get the first Monday of each month, and we do everything from at FFL Consultants, from licensing to inspection, security, staffing, management, ATF, FBI, NICS, whatever you need. We usually have the answer or can get one for you. And we have lots of affiliate partnerships with great vendors out there who can also help you run your business better. So hey, today we're gonna we had a lot of questions come in yesterday, so we're gonna make sure we try to get to those at the end. So if you still have questions today, please just enter them into the chat room. Right at the bottom of your screen should be a little chat. You can enter your questions there, and we'll include those in the Q&A towards the end of this hour. The recording will be available as usual, and we'll send that out within a day or two. All right. So quickly, just an FFL, just a government update. We have Mr. Mark Chapman out of play permanently. Thank you. Goodbye. See you later. Thankfully, that nomination got suppressed, and there's no other nominee behind him for the leadership position of the ATF. So we have Acting Director Marvin Richardson in place. Marvin's a great guy. We've worked with him for years. We call him a neutral 2A supporter. He's neither pro nor con on firearms and your constitutional rights. He's just a steady Eddie, law-abiding enforcer. We actually like working with Marvin, as does the NSSF. So until further notice, Marvin Richardson's the acting director under the AG, Attorney General. Unfortunately, the Biden administration is still going after gun control in many supplementary ways. If they can't do it directly, they're doing it indirectly, and that's the focus of today's conversations. Next, we'll talk about supply chain. We want to talk about burglaries because they are on the rise since last year for a variety of reasons. Tell you what you can do. We're going to bring you up to date on inspections, not only our clients and what we're seeing, but what we're hearing. And then we'll talk about straw purchases and gift giving for the holidays. So we've got a fun-packed hour here. And again, if you got questions along the way, JC, you're going to be monitoring that chat room. So just plug your questions right in there. All right. So, hey, here's the ATF update. We've gotten this information from and some of you may have seen the memo also leaked out there on some chat sites. But there's a memo floating around that's official and been verified that the ATF is asking for additional budget. And the desire there is to double the size of the ATF field force. Under a couple fellas we know, and both on the compliance side and on the regulation side. So we don't know specifically. We're trying to get more information about what those desires are, how they can impact gun dealers. But if they double the size of the ATF, obviously they can double the impact that they're having currently in the way of inspections. But also, there's good reason to double the size. They need to get They need to get NFA approvals through faster. They need to get some paperwork pushed faster. They need to get some of the design and Form 1s, Form 2 submitted faster. So there's a lot of work on the back end that the ATF can definitely use extra staff. We just don't have a breakdown yet of where that staff will be allocated, whether it be to corporate administrative positions or to field inspection positions. And then the third piece of it obviously is the criminal compliance division. So we'll keep you updated if we hear more on that, but it's definitely on the table. And with the current infrastructure bills being on the hot plate, on the front burner, if anything's approved, it can be certain that some of the money will be allocated to our IRS and to the ATF that we've been hearing about. A lot of this is coming on the tails of all of the outrageous, we say outrageous levels of violence involving the use of firearms, not from lawful purchases or transfers, but from thefts of firearms, not only from burglarized FFLs, but out of cars, left unattended at homes, home burglaries and auto break-ins. That is the majority of where these firearms are making their way to the street, or how they're making their way to the street. And unfortunately, the rhetoric is all coming back down on the gun dealer, not on the criminals who are obtaining and possessing and using these firearms in their violent acts. So over in Chicago, and I know Mark's on the call, Illinois is beating the drum on imposing additional laws and creating bills for imposing stricter liability responsibilities for gun dealers. We see that in Congress now, in the House. Unfortunately, if this gets any traction, it will make it into a vote and a bill proposal, and we don't want that to happen, so we'll keep our eye on this. Specifically, it's called the Firearms Dealer and Import Liability Act. And this is crazy. It actually avoids the liability protection you have currently as a gun dealer, which you've had since 1985, I believe. And now it's kind of opening the doors to a gun dealer, importer, or manufacturer being sued and found liable for any act of violence or injury resulting from the use of a firearm, no matter where it came from or how it was obtained. So this is ridiculous. It's a ridiculously written proposal. We saw some of the terminology. We don't, JC and I and our co-counsel doesn't believe it's going to make any traction in the House or with the Senate, but this is the way they are pushing hard and fast because we don't have a leader for the ATF to do any of the pushing. And I think we said it last month, they meaning the Democrats and the Biden administration, have to do their best to put some numbers on the walls next year with the midterm elections. You know, gun control can't be an issue that they haven't had any impact on. So we have to watch this one carefully. And then JC, we got a possible government shutdown coming, don't we?
Well, the government shutdown right now has been averted for the next few months. Their Biden time, no pun intended. So right now, from the looks of it, things are going to remain in full swing for the next few months. But if a government shutdown does happen, the impact on the ATF, FBI, NICS, etc., will go a couple different ways. First and foremost, it'll have zero impact, no impact on criminal enforcement programs or on the industry operations program. So that means it doesn't slow down inspections. IOIs will continue to inspect. It will have no impact on that. Where you will see the impact is potentially at NICS with background checks, where they may cut personnel back and slow the process down, which, you know, wouldn't make the Democrats unhappy in any way, shape, or form. But it'll also cut back on your paperwork for Form 4s and so on. So just be aware of that. Keep an eye on it. If you process a lot of Form 4s and such, you're going to need to be aware of that. It remains to be seen what will happen as far as the e-form program, how that'll change things. But I'm anticipating the paperwork processes to slow down.
So we'll keep our eye on that one.
Yep.
We want to thank you, and the industry wants to thank you for if you participated in the open comments on these two proposals that are basically just sitting in the House right now. Actually sitting in the ATF register on the ATF pistol arm brace. Over 375,000 replies went in and open comments to the ATF. Amazing. I think that's one of the highest numbers we've ever seen in the time we've been looking at this process. And then we had 250,000 open comments on the 80% lowers. So what happens next? The 80% lower issue, we get this question all the time. Should I sell them as firearms? We keep saying, no, not yet, not until it's serialized and regulated. But we have a lot of dealers selling 80% lowers or unfinished lowers. And as a side note, we get a lot of gunsmiths calling saying, what if I finish this gun? How do I do this? Can I do this for this customer? So if you have those, we should make that another topic on another call. But we really don't want to get into business of finishing lowers as licensed firearms dealers and gunsmiths right now. If you're a manufacturer, obviously that's a separate issue. But if you're just a type 1 or type 2 licensee, please try not to finish lowers and build guns out of those. Actually, you can't. That's the bottom line. So if you did reply, thank you. If you didn't, please do your part next time any of these comments roll around. And JC, you had a good comment on that. How should they reply if they do reply to an
Yeah, just
FFL
make
related
sure,
issue?
you're providing facts. Don't just send a message and say, I don't want this to be regulated. They did get a lot of comments like that, and the ATF has to go through all those, and it just ties it up even longer. I was actually waiting for it in the very beginning, and it finally happened right before the close. A lot of folks were actually commenting regarding ADA compliance, because in the beginning, the brace really did come out to help combat veterans and others with disabilities to continue shooting and enjoying the ability to shoot the most popular rifle in America, the AR platform rifle. So somebody finally started bringing up Americans with Disabilities Act, and that it should really be protected under that. So we'll see what happens. I believe they opened it up for further comments for another period. So we will, because of the overwhelming response. So we will wait and see on that one. Very hopeful, but definitely if you didn't submit your comments on that and the period's back open, please do so.
Right. And from here, the ATF has to create focus committees to look at, like JC said, by law, they have to read every open comment. They have to create a recommendation to the legislature, to the Congress, and go from there. So it's going to take a while. If we hear anything along the way, we'll certainly keep you updated.
All right, supply chain. So we've all experienced it over the pandemic for sure, and I'm sure we're still experiencing a little bit, but it really all falls down to the left side of the table. Essentially it starts at your suppliers. So you have two problems with your suppliers, and that's one, raw materials, especially if they're mined. Mines are shut down still. We're still having issues with COVID. We're seeing that with the ammo specifically, especially with the ammo over across the water there. And mining the low explosive that is used in primers. That's one problem that you're having, but raw materials overall are tough to get. Suppliers and manufacturers and the miners of raw materials and such are experiencing the same thing everybody else is experiencing, a lack of workforce. And it drives all the way through to supply chain as far as distributors and logistical companies. There are no truck drivers. Truck drivers are in short supply, so people aren't getting that product on the road from the warehouse to you as a retailer. So, right now is the time you should be looking at all those products and figuring out, okay, what do I need to survive? Things have flattened out a little bit. We're still seeing a decline in the number of sales and such, but it hasn't been astronomical. People are still concerned. We're starting to see more of an ammo supply come through, which is good. But you need to be prepared for that and continued constraints on the supply chain. JB, right now, there's how many sitting off the coast of California?
I was up in Seattle last week, and our client up there is waiting. She's waiting on months worth of back orders that are sitting on 60 container ships off of Los Angeles.
You got 60 container ships sitting off the coast waiting to be received into the port in Long Beach. And the reason for that is no dock workers. They're not working either. So, and on top of that, you got nobody to drive the containers once they do hit land. So the other problem that we're seeing with containers is for fulfillment purposes, what we call staffing and consolidating, a container used to cost $2,000 to load and push across the water. Now it's costing 20 grand. So a very significant uptick in the price of containers as far as fulfillment is concerned. So these are all constraints that are going to drive up prices and cause issues with demand. So just be aware of it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, JC, did you say how much it costs for a container now?
Yep, 2,000 to 20,000.
Yeah.
So it went from an average of $2,000 per container if you want to stick something on it to $20,000. It's just been insane.
Yeah, so think about this. If you're waiting on goods to be delivered to your store, not only guns, firearms and ammo, but if you have accessories and anything that's imported or made out of country, some of those holiday goods that you might be planning for may not be coming in until very close to Christmas. So you got to be planning for that. or after Christmas. That was one concern with this client last week, is that some of the goods may not arrive till December or January. So try to get in touch with your companies you placed orders with. All right.
Yep.
All right. So burglaries are on the rise. Let's figure out real fast what happened last year. We had no guns in stores this time of year. COVID hit. We sold all our guns. The bad guys knew that there was nothing to rob, nothing to steal. That was 2020. 2019 was a good year was a high year for burglaries, a lot of smash and grabs. So last year we saw great decreases, less guns on the street, obviously, because of lack of supply. Now the guns are back in stores. There's a 30 to 40% increase in the number of burglaries, as well as the number of guns being stolen from gun dealers. This news makes it to the press very quickly nowadays because of the focus on gun control and the Biden administration. So we want you to do everything you can to prevent burglaries. We haven't talked about this in a while. In the last 2 weeks, we've had break-ins at FFLs where we lost guns, and New Hampshire, Michigan, Texas, New York, and Kentucky. We do track and talk to these folks daily as they occur. If they don't call us, we reach out to them on behalf of the National Shooting Sports Foundation. So with the recorded with the recorded Zoom session today that we'll be sending out, we'll also send you our own security and risk self-assessment. It's a 5-page tool. There's just page 1 there on the screen, but it's going to let you walk through your place of business, do your own security inspection, do your own expert review of where you can improve your physical security, if possible, and where possible. If you have any questions at all, please give us a call. We're happy to help answer your questions, move you in the right direction, help you make some decisions, and put you in touch with suppliers if necessary. Next is ATF inspections, the good, the bad, the ugly, we usually call this. Currently, we have since our last call in September, we have 5 ongoing inspections at our clients right now. 4 concluded in September. We're waiting on the results of 2. We did get good results on 2, and it worries us when we wait on results because we have a feeling they're writing a long report that we have to prep for, meaning in a way of a warning or a revocation delivery. So of those 5 ongoing right now, 3 were the result of being already in the warning or pre-revocation status, intent to revoke. And then those 2 random inspections. So we're hearing now that they're getting behind. Actually, they've gotten behind most of their follow-ups to warnings and revocation status FFLs in the last year or 2. And now they're moving to more random inspections. So if you haven't been inspected in 3, 4, 5 years, you might be getting a visit soon.
Yeah. Let me just go back one, John. Let me just touch on that real quick. Just a heads up. I mean, I went down and worked on some stuff down in the South this past week. And I can tell you right now, if you are on adverse action, which means a warning letter, a warning conference, or, revocation, and they've postponed the revocation for whatever reason, which is highly unusual. I will tell you that month 13 from the date of that warning conference or the date of that warning letter, you are going to see the ATF. They are going to come back out. They have been given their marching orders that they need to firm it up and get a little bit stricter and really stay on top of things. So just be aware, month 13, be prepared if you're on adverse action, because they're coming.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the Biden administration has to put something on the wall next year when they move towards this midterm election regarding gun control. And right now there's 0. So we feel this is the low-hanging fruit for them, and we're feeling and sensing that through the approach the IOIs are taking when they do come in for inspection. That they're not the friendly, warm people they used to be.
Yeah.
I'll
tell you right now too, if and I've got 2 of them right now that I talked to over the weekend, one up in the Northeast and one down in the South. The one in the Northeast called begging for help and support. They're going through an inspection right now, and they're one of those ones. And hey, listen, I'm not here to sell you anything. We can talk about different solutions and opportunities for you. But the bottom line is this FFL verbatim said, no, I think we're all good with ATF compliance. We don't need any help or support. and lo and behold, 18 months later, they're going through an inspection, they will be losing their license based on what I'm hearing so far. So, and the same happened with one of our FFLs down south. Don't call us when they're revoking your license, because there's going to be, it's going to be a lot of work for us to prove to the ATF that you're going to stay in business and do the right thing. Take advantage of the programs that we have out there through either us directly or through the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Don't call us at the last minute when you're getting the letter and saying you have to report to the ATF, because it's going to hurt. And you're going to have to come up with some corrective action plans that make sense. And I can just tell you, I can give you quite a few names of people and phone numbers of people that say, don't wait, because it does hurt when they come down hard on you.
Yeah. And like we always say, listen, as a courtesy to all of you on this call, you're all listed as, when you join one of our calls, you get listed as an ambassador in our CRM system. Our service to you during an inspection is free. We'll hold your hand, we'll talk you through it, and we'll make sure you try to do everything right, whether you're a client or not. So please remember to call us when that ATF IOI shows up. Not halfway through and not at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So these are some of the things that we're seeing out there as far as ATF is concerned, and what they're looking at, what they're calling out as far as violations. Inventory is always an issue. It's on the top 10 every year. We want to make sure that you're conducting inventories on a regular basis. Now, this all depends on your volume, what you're holding in inventory, how many sales you're doing. I mean, if you're an FFL that only has a handful of guns because you're a pawnbroker, it's not a big segment of your business, or you're a new FFL just starting out, whatever the case may be, just make sure you're keeping a proactive inventory, what you have going on. Now, our recommendation is do it on a quarterly basis. Make sure that you're conducting that inventory in a way that is systematic. I always recommend you do handguns 1 month, you do rifles 1 month, you do shotguns 1 month. That way it breaks it up a little bit, makes it less monotonous. The key here is to make sure that you don't have guns that have gone missing, that you received all the firearms you were supposed to. So we always recommend keeping those commercial records of your invoices and such. And then if the unfortunate occurs and you are missing a firearm, you have 48 hours to report that via 3310.11 to the ATF. Things happen. We know that. That's why we recommend doing those quarterly inventories, and even daily or every other day counts of firearms. Know how many handguns you have that are on display, know how many shotguns, know how many rifles, and just do a simple daily count to make sure you have everything. Removing miscellaneous documents from 4473s. This is a double-edged sword. That's the photocopies of IDs or driver's licenses, a copy of the background check results, things like that. Documents that you're making photocopies of and collecting for internal controls are a double-edged sword. So our recommendation on that is, if you want to keep it, it's a really good practice to do so. It'll help you in the long term, make information available to you in the event you do find an error. But we recommend keeping those documents in a separate file, keep them segregated from the 4473s, but keep it in such a way, mirror the way you file your 4473s so you can get it to it quickly. So if you're filing your 4473s by date, do the same with any miscellaneous documents. If you're filing your 4473s by the transaction serial number, do the same with the miscellaneous documents. So that way you can grab it really quick. Signature, certification, expiration dates. Two different certifications here. There's the certification of the transferee, the buyer of the firearm. We're seeing this a lot where it's either missed or the wrong date is captured. So you want to make sure that they're not putting their birth date in that certification date. I think that's probably what's screwing that up the most, is because of what it's called. So just, make sure that you're looking for that. Recertification. By regulation, recertification does not need to occur if the transfer occurs on the same date as originally certified. Now, is it a good practice? Sure. If the individual has to leave for a few hours because you're waiting on the background check to complete and they have other things to do and they come back and they re-sign and date it, that's fine. Totally within your right to do so. Not a big deal at all. It's a good practice. Lastly, when you transfer the firearm, make sure whoever is doing the physical transfer of the firearm is signing it, printing their name, and dating it. We're seeing a lot of FFLs upon inspection finding 4473s that were not certified by the transferor. So that means that your employee or yourself didn't sign it because you set it aside thinking you're going to get to it later. So just make sure that you're doing so at the time of transfer. It'll make your life a lot easier. Don't wait. All corrections, initials, dated, pages copied. I'll tell you, over the last few years, I don't know if it's just laziness or there's been rumors out there that you don't need to date any corrections. That is not correct. We're seeing a lot of IOIs ding FFLs for when corrections are made. They're not dating the correction. Dating it tells the ATF, the IOI on site, that correction was done on the same day. And make sure that if you do a correction after the transfer occurs, after that firearm leaves your building, make sure any corrections made are made on a photocopy of the page where the error occurs. That correction is made on the photocopy and it's initialed and dated on the photocopy, not on the original, and put that correction with the original 4473. Mark brought up that Illinois state requires FFLs to keep copies of ID. Yes, if the state has requirements or the local government has requirements beyond what the ATF does, then definitely you need to be in accordance with those laws as well. Thanks, Mark Lavin, for bringing that up. We're speaking generally for FFLs that don't have those restrictions on them. So just make sure you're doing that as well.
Yeah,
What I
JC,
missed, JB?
yeah, two quick stories on this one. So one of our reports we're waiting on, one of our inspection reports was, we know one major issue, but it was a 300 violation, more than 300 issues on specific to one violation of not dating their error corrections. So this IOI is going to take the time, and she was very adamant about it, because the FFL was only initialing and asking their customers to initial, not date, changes. She is identifying every issue on every form and listing that into their, it's definitely going to be at least a warning notice to the FFL, among some other, not major issues, but minor. But when you have 300 minor issues on your report of violations following an inspection, that's going to put you in a bad place. So again, simply because they weren't dating their error corrections. And the assumption is, if you're not dating it, there's a reason why you're not dating it, or you're making corrections on another date and you're afraid to put the date. So she's interpreting that as a statute violation, which it is, and listing all those. So we're preparing, and we've already talked to our attorney on that, who's going to be sitting there with us during the warning conference. Hopefully it's just a warning conference and we can fix that and get past it on the next inspection. And then on the signatures we're going to get to this in a minute, but if you're using an electronic system, make sure they're capturing all of those digital signatures. I'll tell a story in just a minute here.
One other thing on this too is, as far as your background check, whether you do a state point of contact or if you do NICS, we're recommending two things with this. Number one, print off that response that you get from NICS or your state agency, include it with the 4473. That's a really good practice, because what's going to happen is the IOI is going to show up to your FFL for your inspection, and they're actually going to have a list of every control number or NTN number that you've been issued, and they are going to go through and basically cross-reference it with every 4473. So that means if you've done a background check, you better have a 4473 that coincides with it. So they're going to check that, and it's going to be part of their inspection process. And then at the end of the month, make sure you're printing off your monthly summary to make sure that you have a good count on how many 4473s. So when you close out that month, you can actually verify, okay, I did 100 transactions, 1,000 transactions, 10,000 transactions. I have 10,000 NTN control numbers issued to me, and I have the corresponding amount of 4473s as well. Couple of good business practices for you there, just to make sure that you stay in compliance.
All right, I'll grab this, JC. So the other issue we're finding violations being written on, and again, remember, the inspector you get next time may not be the inspector you had last time. So we're finding that also to be, they're doing a little shuffle game. So they're getting fresh eyes on your business. And we're finding, we had another one of the other inspection we're waiting on results from is 3310.4 is not being filed timely and not included with the, or attached to the 4473 that they respectively pertain to. And so we have this on the other inspection, over 70 of these. So we're very concerned how that's going to read in their closing conference and visit summary. Timely trace response, that will, if you're not responding same day to traces, we are told, and actually one of the inspections occurring, the IOI actually told the FFL that they were moved up on the random inspection schedule for their delayed responses to traces. So a lot of you may not be getting a lot of traces, but if you do, make sure you're responding to them same day, next day the latest. And if you can't get it same day, tell them you're working on it, and just don't leave them hanging, because you're the last piece of that process. When they initiate that trace, it starts at the importer or the manufacturer. It's taken long time just to get to you, and somebody's waiting on an answer to get that 4473 in hand to figure out who that gun is supposed to belong to. 4473 and e-bound books. This is where I was just talking about the software glitch. Again, we have a dealer using one of the more prominent software packages out there to complete 4473s. And unfortunately, the digital signature pad was not working correctly and not capturing every signature, and therefore not transposing it or transferring it to the computer 4473. They didn't notice this. It was actually happening on the employee signature in box 34, where the employee has to sign upon transfer of the firearm. And because of that, they're in kind of deep, trying to explain why they didn't know about the software glitch. And it leads the ATF to know they weren't reviewing their forms regularly. So again, double and triple check your form. We say double check before you transfer any firearm, triple check your 4473s before you file them.
Yeah, just a couple of add-ons on this and what we've been seeing with inspections. The 3310.4 especially, 3310.12s are only required in border states down along the southern border. But previously they were a little bit lenient. We'll call it lenient as far as submission of the 3310.4s. That's your multiple sale form, and we've got a question in the queue on this as well. Before they were, next business day, they weren't, getting in a twist over it. But now we're starting to see on inspections, if you're not getting that 3310.4 or 3310.12 submitted by the end of the same business day that the multi-sale occurs. Let me reiterate that, by the end of the same business day. We have had a number of FFLs that, they've called us and said, oh my God, I'm getting violations on this. Before I was submitting them the next business morning and everything was fine. They're just getting more strict. The fact of the matter is they created the form. The form says the same business day. You have to do it on the same business day. And to your question, Matt, yes, the 3310.4 and the 3310.12, there is a copy in there. It's called the FFL copy. That is to be maintained with the corresponding ATF form 4473, and it needs to be filed with it. So make sure you're filing the forms together.
I'll just
What do
touch
we got
on
here? Manufacturer and importer. Sorry, I'm trying to respond to the question.
Oh no, John, grab this one. So last few calls, guys, last few months, we've been focusing, we try to focus for you on issues that we're hearing the ATF is focusing on. So the feedback last six months ago was definitely focusing on manufacturer and importer. We created some tools for that and training documents. And so we've been getting a lot of questions on this. We want to clarify so that you're not confused. So anyway, Here's two forms. Here's your acquisition and disposition or bound book on the left. And here's your 4473 on the right, down at the bottom. Okay, as the statute reads, as the law reads today, you are still required to put the manufacturer and importer, if any, if it's imported, both names in column 1 of your description of firearm when you're acquiring a firearm. Okay, and over on the 4473, though, they have instituted a while back a rule that says right here, manufacturer and importer, if any, if the manufacturer and importer are different, include both. So on the 4473, if it's a Glock Austria imported and for Glock USA, on the 4473, you can simply list Glock. Same thing for Taurus and other Sig Sauer, Germany, and Sig Sauer, New Hampshire. So on the 4473, you can list one name if they're the same, but in your acquisition and disposition log, we are getting cited and on visits by IOIs right now. Remember, they're detail freaky right now. If it just says Glock, or if it just says Taurus there, and it's an imported firearm, there we have seen citations issued, meaning citable errors noted on your visit summary. So there is a difference. There's not one rule for both. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. And again, our goal is to always keep you out of the arena of willful or negligent activities. There's a lot of focus right now on selling to pawn purchases. I think we're going to talk about that in a minute, but the ATF and criminal division is trying to hold the gun dealer liable for knowingly processing pawn purchases. So we have a couple questions also on that. We'll get to JC a little later, but remember, we're trying to keep you out of anything willful. And that means going back to look at your last report to make sure your last report, if it had any instruction from the ATF, that you went and complied with any corrective action from the last visit. That is the first thing they will do when they visit you, is pull out the report, whether it be a year ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and make sure you don't have any repeat errors. Okay.
All right, the holidays are here. It's October, and really, honestly, I would have told you probably July would have been the time frame to be planning for the holiday season. But we're in crunch time right now because supply chains are so constrained. So you really need to be, if you're going to be marketing your product during Christmas, this is the time. This is crunch time. So you really need to get it together. As far as pricing is concerned, keep an eye on the big boys. If you're not a big boy, keep an eye on the big boys. See what's going on. You can certainly add a couple of points to any prices to keep your costs a little bit higher, but don't go crazy. If you have it available, that's going to entice somebody to come down to your shop over ordering it online and doing a transfer. Now, if you make a ton of money on transfers, by all means, go for it. If you want to take on the liability and deal with the nonsense, you should definitely reach out to us. We have a number of programs that we've implemented in FFLs around the country when it comes to transfers, because we know all the aggravation points as it relates to doing online transfers. And we really do have some good programs that'll drive that price up and give you a little bit more profit on these things. But you also need to be looking at ordering. You need to be looking at your ammunition inventories and your common products that you're using for add-on sales. And you need to be stocking up on those products and making sure you have the capability to deliver those add-on sales to drive up the margin on all those transactions. So get on it now. Start paying attention. If you're not signed up for the Brownells email blasts, the Palmetto State Armory email blasts, the Davidsons, all those other guys out there that do the email blasts all the time, get on them. Doesn't mean you're interested in it. It just means you're paying attention to what prices they're offering, because that's what the consumer's looking at. And I can tell you, I look at them every time I get one. What are they selling? What for? How much of the prices of semi-autos come down? Things like that. So be paying attention and start building out your marketing plan and your promotional schedule now.
Yep. JC, yeah, and I'm looking at the list. A lot of you are using our tool for converting your transfer customers to your in-store customer. But if you're not seeing that as a fabulous way to drive new client acquisition, give me an email, JB@FFL Consultants. I'll send you the tool. We'll walk through it and maybe get it on a future Ask Us Anything. How can you easily convert your transfer customers to your in-store customer? So, all right.
All right, guns as gifts. Number one, let's talk about gifts. This is your opportunity to drive sales, drive margin, drive profitability. If you have a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, whatever the case may be, come into your store and they say they want to buy a gun for a family member, great. If you have the ability to sell them a gift card or gift certificate, we definitely recommend going that path. But if that is not an option, how about, you know what, you get them in the store, let them look at stuff, let them get a feel on the firearm, see if they like it. Again, if that's not an option, all right, well, then I guess it's time to ask the question. Is it really a gift? Are you buying it with your own money and not expecting anything in return? It's that simple. There is nothing wrong with asking a very pointed and candid question. And you can tell them straight up, hey, listen, I just want to make sure you don't get in trouble and I don't get in trouble. So I just need to make sure you're buying it as an actual gift. Straw purchases. If you come across a straw purchase, you definitely need to be going out to don'tlie.org and picking up those education materials, watching the videos and such. But there's nothing wrong with asking the question, who are we buying a gun for today? If you come across a situation where you think it could be a straw purchase, just ask them, hey, who are you buying a gun for today? I want to make sure this isn't a straw purchase because I don't want you to get in trouble and I don't want to get in trouble. There's nothing wrong with asking that question. So your first question, anytime a customer approaches your counter, should always be, who are we buying a gun for today?
Yeah. And if you need any of the Don't Lie Kit tools or toolkits, just give us a line. We'll give us an email. We'll make sure we get that out to you.
Absolutely.
And they're great tools, rebranded, look cool now, cool new look, and easy way to turn down someone who you think is a straw purchaser.
Yep.
Right. So JC, really good questions and stuff came in. I know we've got a bunch, like I said, came in yesterday. So let's take anything that we didn't answer from the chat first.
Sure. I answered them on the chat, but just real quick to reiterate, if state law is stricter than federal law or federal regulations, you always are required to follow state law. Mark Lavin, thanks for bringing that up about Illinois. The bottom line is ATF will be looking, they know what the laws are in the state, so you need to follow whatever the state laws are as well. And then again, that 3310.4 and where applicable, the 3310.12, definitely file those with the corresponding 4473, and they are to be reported on the same day that the multi-sale occurs.
Now, yeah, and we strongly recommend keeping either the fax or email copy of you sending it because
yes, absolutely. We have seen this a number of times. We just had an inspection closed out a couple of weeks ago. It was really good inspection. Only a couple of violations, nothing major. But the one thing that came up during the inspection, just like the NTN control numbers, when the IOI shows up, they're going to show up with a report of all your multiple sales. And this particular FFL, get this, ready, had 80 missing 3310.4s. 80 were missing from ATF records. And because the FFL, who's a client of ours, followed our recommendations, they kept a copy of every submission to the ATF and local law enforcement. They kept the emails associated with that submission because they were able to email to both their local law enforcement and the ATF, the form, the document. They were able to show, hey, your list may be 80 short, but I can show you every one that we've done. So just keep that in mind. That's a really good business practice. Keep a copy of your submissions, whether it's a fax, whether it's an email, or whether you're mailing them in. Keep some sort of transaction record that shows, hey, I submitted it in a timely manner.
All right, I think you got JC. If I don't answer this, I'm gonna get the 6th email from this from this client. He's a great guy, but he keeps asking me and wants it brought up. Okay, he's a new FFL and he has a transfer pending in research, a NICS pending. He's from Texas. And how do I nicely or professionally explain to the customer that I don't have to transfer him his firearm after the 3-day Brady date expires when I don't feel comfortable?
Say that again.
So the Brady date expires. There's a new gun deal, and I think a lot of gun dealers have to, have this issue. The question is, well, first of all, you don't have to transfer a firearm after the Brady date expires on a NICS delay. So
Right.
this is in delay. And he wants to be able to explain professionally, but he doesn't, to the customer, that he doesn't have to, transfer the firearm. It's his discretion.
Sure.
So what's the easiest way to do that?
The easiest way, I mean, it's really simple. You just advise the transferee, the buyer, listen, our company standard or our company practice is X. We don't transfer after a Brady date has expired until after the Brady date is expired. So, it's real simple. You can be honest. You don't need to badger them or anything else. Just be honest and say, hey, I'm sorry you feel that way. If they give you pushback or whatever, you just simply state, sorry, our company policy is X. So it's really that simple.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a company policy. You don't have to state that. I mean, if you're worried about stating that, and then somebody talking to somebody else saying, well, he didn't do it for me. Yeah, and hey, a lot of times, new customers, unknown customers, first-time customers, until you have a track record with them, it's the gun dealer's discretion to complete the transfer at their discretion after that Brady date expires. There's no law that states, obviously, that you have to transfer a firearm. So, and in a case where this is a push, maybe you want to cancel that transfer. Maybe that customer isn't a customer you want to transfer a gun to, and hold that liability, and have that responsibility sitting out there because he's a hothead or whatever he might be. So most customers, once they realize you can cancel a transaction, and that's another way to do it, say, hey, we can either go with the delay and see if you get proceeded, see if you get approved, or we can just cancel today.
Yep.
What do you want? You go buy your gun someplace else. Then they might quiet down after that approach.
We got a question come in. Online order comes into John Doe. Jane Doe comes in to fill out the 4473. Can we transfer? All right, we're going to take a look at this in two different ways. First, from a liability standpoint, and I'm not talking regulatory liability. I'm just talking about product liability, right? So if John Doe orders a product and Jane Doe comes in to pick it up, I'd have problems with that as a retailer, as a business, because I'd be concerned whether or not, if I'm transferring this to them, does John Doe know, and has John Doe given me permission to transfer a product to that person instead of himself? And then secondly, in this scenario, ask the question, are you picking this up for John Doe? Can John Doe be in possession of a firearm, etc.? So there's really nothing wrong with it. Would I do it? No. But you definitely want to, as the FFL, check those boxes, be specific, ask those questions. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, I'd be really careful from a liability standpoint, because you certainly don't want to, number one, be transferring a firearm in a straw purchase scenario. But secondly, you don't want to be purchasing the firearm if John Doe hasn't given explicit instructions and you've explained to them that they're not, you can't, if you're not able to be in possession of a firearm, I'm not transferring it one way or another.
Here's one from, I learned from last month, JC. I'm not going to, people don't want their names listed. So we just, from now on, because of the inspection process ramping up, our members and our viewers are asking us, we just got to list the city or the state you're in. So in Delaware, here we go. Asking about a customer from PA, asking about a customer from Pennsylvania, asking to purchase an AR in Delaware. Are there any restrictions? So I had this call yesterday, or this question yesterday sent in. So yeah, we did the research. Pennsylvania does have some sticky laws and registration. They do a point of contact for handguns in Pennsylvania. There's a whole tax issue behind all the firearm transactions in Pennsylvania. But being that you are a Delaware FFL, the only things you have to worry about in processing a long gun transfer for somebody from Pennsylvania is that you follow U.S. state law, where you're licensed, and obviously the AR, this is an AR, so any AR restrictions in the state of Pennsylvania, there are none. If this firearm was being purchased in Pennsylvania, there would be other things a Pennsylvania dealer has to do, but you can sell to somebody from your neighboring state. That would be fine.
Yep, just that's the rule. You have to follow the law and the rules in both states.
Yeah.
And if you have those questions, reach out to us. We have got a whole database on this stuff that we can refer to. Makes life a lot easier on you.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot more of these because some municipalities, towns beyond states are imposing their own restrictions. So we try to keep up with it. And we always get the question, is there a list that you can send us? The answer is no, because it's always changing. And very often when you call and ask us, sometimes we even have to go stop and check before you give the right answer because of our own liability. So just call us. We're fine. We're happy to help you. Rochester, New York. How do you correct an NFA Form 2 issue submitted via e-form that did not qualify under his type? Oh, he has a type 3 NFA tax stamp, but it looks like he did something that he shouldn't have on a Form 2.
All right. Well, first of all, if he's a class 3 NFA, that is a dealer. And a Form 2 is a report of manufacturing. So you definitely don't want to file an ATF Form 2 if you are not a class 2 SOT, which is a manufacturer. That's the pinch. So in that situation, what you do is, obviously, if you've submitted a Form 2 as a class 3 dealer, you're going to need to break down that firearm ASAP because number one, you can't manufacture NFA firearms. So, and then, that FFL is going to have to be ready for an inspection. I would almost guess, because somebody's going to send a message to the local field division advising them that FFL needs to be educated on manufacturing NFAs when they cannot. Yep. So, as far as the Form 2, in that situation, we actually reached out to the NFA division to let them know that our client goofed and we're taking care of it.
Here's an easy one, JC. Can a 17-year-old work in a gun store and sell firearms?
Absolutely. 17-year-old can. Yes. Here's the deal. Any minors under 18 years old, the requirement is that they, believe it or not, have a letter from mom and dad that states that they know that their child and they have permission to work at a gun store. So the answer is yes, a minor can work in a gun store as long as they have permission from a parent or guardian, and it needs to be in writing. So they should have a copy on their person, and you should have a copy in your records with that letter.
The only PS to this is do a couple more things. Check with your insurance company, make sure you're insured because of the type of business you're in. And the other piece we heard from attorneys is you probably don't want this minor signing off on the transfer boxes 3435 to transfer a firearm, because at some point down the road, that form and that transfer can be subpoenaed, and then you'd be sending a minor to testify or be arbitrated or disposed in a court of law. So let them, if you have a minor working there, fine. They could be round guns, handle guns, show guns. They can have somebody fill out the 4473, but on a final transfer, you probably want an adult employee swearing to that transfer and certifying that everything's correct. Little Rock, Arkansas. How do I add a firearm to a pre-printed E4473 in the software system? And how do I reconcile the added firearm in this? I'm not mentioning the software system, but okay. So this one's easy. Actually, there's a lot of you using software. And I had this happen last week with a different vendor where the 4473 gets locked. It gets locked once it's reviewed and ready to go to NICS. And you can't go in and edit that after that, with the software. You can do this on pen and paper forms. So in this case, if someone got delayed or just in the same transaction wanted to add another firearm, usually it's on a delay. Somebody comes back 2 or 3 days later and says, I want to add this firearm to my pre-printed 4473. You can simply, as long as you didn't complete the transfer yet, you can simply handwrite that in with a pen on the form that's sitting there in the delay file and add that firearm. Now, that what we caution you on is most of the software systems will auto delete your firearm from inventory once it's transferred. So make sure there's a way in your software to go back in and delete or complete that transfer for the added firearm because it wasn't included on your automated E4473.
Yeah. That comes up quite a bit as far as when we do our mock inspections, when can I add an additional firearm? The rule of thumb is the time to add an additional firearm to 4473 is prior to the NICS or state point of contact background check. As soon as you initiate the background check, because when you initiate the background check, you're selecting which firearms can be added or which firearms are included in that transaction. If you have to do it after the fact, that means you're going to have to get on the phone with the state or with NICS and make a change to that record. Because again, when the ATF shows up, they're going to have a list of all the NTN control numbers that have been submitted for the period by your FFL. And they're going to know every NTN. This one was for a handgun. This one was for a handgun and long gun. This one was for other. They're going to know when they look at the 4473 what that NTN was issued for, and they could violate you. So a couple questions here came in there, JB. Can the minor carry a handgun while on premise and working in the gun range or gun store? Number one, check with your insurance company to see if you're covered for that type of situation. I would tell you that it definitely depends on state law as well. Federally speaking, and again, put it in that letter of permission from the parent that says they know that their child will be carrying a firearm. I would tell you in a lot of cases, minors in possession of handguns, there are a lot of state laws and regulations around that. So you have to be really, really careful. But in addition to that, you'll also have to be careful from a liability state. Another question is, everyone making all customers have a piece of government paperwork with a middle name if they have one? I think we covered this on the last Ask Us Anything last month in September. The requirement is, and this has been coming up quite a bit in Ohio, you are definitely one of those states where there's an issue. A middle initial on the driver's license or no middle name on the driver's license, and the individual identifies that they have a full middle name on the 4473, they will need to get another government document issued from a government agency showing their middle name. And you'll address that in your supplemental documentation on the second page of the 4473, showing that you received a government issued document that shows their full middle name. That is a requirement, and it's coming up more and more. So just be aware of that. You are required to get documentation showing their full middle name.
Yeah, we're seeing this in a lot of this is happening in California where for some crazy reason they're truncating the middle name or putting an initial only when the person actually has a full middle name. And the question always is, if the driver's license shows E for Edward as an example, and that's what's showing on their driver's license, even though they have a full middle name, can they put E with IO after it? And the answer is no to JC's statement. Get a secondary proof of full legal name, attach that. In California, you have to use it for DOJ anyway. But if you have a state where that occurs, don't try to shortcut it by not putting their full middle name in there, because some of that information can be verified.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ATF will call the individual and say, do you have a middle name? Right. So just be aware of that.
Oregon asking about how to complete the 4473s and logging lower receivers. Well, this one's easy. Just like any other a lower receiver is a firearm, as would be a frame, a handgun frame. So yes, they are firearms. They get listed in the category as other, and they do get listed as a type lower receiver or receiver. Don't put lower, put receiver or lower receiver, and the same information for your acquisition disposition book. Salem, Oregon. Is it hard to get into the silencer business? How difficult is the paperwork? Do you need separate records? That's for you, G. That's yours, John.
Actually, here's a funny thing. We're actually in the preparation stages of hosting a special event with one of our clients who happens to be a silencer manufacturer to talk very specifically about the NFA world and selling and the process of silencer suppressors. So that's to be announced here soon. It's not difficult to get into that world. My recommendation, if you're going to become a class 3 dealer, my recommendation is once you've applied for that, it takes about 4 weeks to go through that process. There are a number of different forms to be aware of depending on what class SOT you get. But the fact of the matter is it's all very simple. It's not very difficult at all. There's an e-form platform that you can sign up for to do all the various forms. As a matter of fact, we were part of the committee who went through the e-form 4 process to see how that would work. And that's going to be coming online relatively soon as well. So you'll be able to process e-form 4s systemically and collect everything internally, including fingerprints and all that kind of stuff. So not very hard, pretty simple process. It's all predicated on Form 3s and Form 4s as a class 3 dealer is concerned. You might see a Form 5 every now and again, but those are pretty rare. But if you want to talk about that opportunity a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us. I'll be happy to spend some time on the phone. And again, stay tuned. We're going to have a special guest coming on next month to talk about selling silencers and getting into the silencer business.
Cool. All right, JC, last question here. Just over the hour. Thanks everybody for sitting in with us. Here's a question on the 4473, question 26C. We put in the military orders establishing permanent change of station address, but I haven't seen where you can annotate it on the NICS website.
There isn't anything on the NICS website, but I can reach out to Eric to see if there's anything to call out on that specifically. The key to the permanent change of station orders is that they do need to say permanent. They do need to have an address, and you can accept electronic copies. The government, the military is moving to electronic copies, so you can accept electronic copies as a proof of permanent change of station. As far as NICS is concerned, I will get back to you on that one. I'll reach out to NICS leadership and actually find out if there's anything specific within the NICS system that you can document that.
While we're on this one, JC, I'll add, we have a lot of questions come in always on 26B asking, can I use the electronic website verification for a Department of Motor Vehicle license update? And the answer is yes, as long as you can raise your right hand and write on line 26B that you verified via the respective state Department of Motor Vehicle online service. And I would say put as much information in that line as possible. Just don't say verified online. Say verified at www, statedmv.org, whatever it might be.
The key to that is just make sure it's permanent. They're like a great example is United States Postal Service offers an online change of address. Just make sure if you get that document, and we always recommend, don't be the facilitator in this process. They want to do it on their phone or they want to do it at home or whatever the case may be. We just recommend staying out of facilitation on these processes, but just make sure that all of these typically will say, this is temporary or permanent or whatever the case may be. And then secondly, make sure that it's a true government agency. That's a big one. A lot of utilities and such have transitioned over to private, but they may still say, the city of such and such water department, but you got to make sure that that entity is an actual government agency.
And in every case where you're even a little bit unsure as to what to do, try to print and keep a copy. And we say if it's a one-off, it's just going to be something that the ATF and IOI is going to scratch their head on. We say keep a copy. Certain things, only a couple of things you have to keep a copy on, but if you're in doubt, we call you a lot of times when we talk to you, we say, that's a good one to keep a copy on. It's not, we don't have a list, but feel free to reach out to us, give us a call and get some advice, make a partner. All right, guys, I think we're up, John. It's 12:07. Happy October, everyone. We will be sending a link to the recorded version in the next few days along with some tools. If anybody needs anything you heard us mention, just drop us a line at info@FFL+Consultants.com. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys. We'll see you soon.
Have a great week, everyone.
See you.